There is a term in the Bible, there is a idea in Scripture, and as the church has journeyed toward a modern day construct, we have lost a sense of understanding of this particular term. It is the term backslider. Old church folks knew exactly what it meant. They applied generous overtones, definitions to the idea of what it meant to backslide. In some circle, if you wore a dress that was too short, you were a backslider. If you wore makeup, you were a backslider. If you came to church in blue jeans, you were a backslider. Come on, help me somebody. Some of us know the general way in which that term was applied that had nothing to do with the heart of what it means. But nevertheless, it is a biblical term. It is a position that many of us and all of us at some time or another in our life find ourselves in that said state. You may look at the person that has traveled to the drug house and call him or her a backslider, but if you really stand a few moments in the mirror and be honest with our own self, you, in some way, shape, form, or fashion, yourself, myself, have been a backslider. I came here with one agenda today. That is to preach. I don't have anything else to do but to preach. All of us are prone, all of us have the propensity at any given moment to turn our back on God, to pursue a path that is contrary to the path that God has called us on. And you and I may try to weigh it in the scales of humanity as that she or he has backslidden more than I. They've done something more than I. I would never do that. I don't see how they could do that. But the reality of it is, when God looks at each and every one of us, he has one way of looking at it. If you have sinned, if you have turned your back upon him, he doesn't measure it by you did a certain thing or you did this thing and it was greater than that thing. He just looks at it in this perspective that you have walked away from me. You have committed spiritual adultery. You have turned your back upon me. And yet God says in the midst of all of that, he says to the prophet Jeremiah, I am married to the backslider. As much as I dislike what you've done, as much as I dislike where you've been, as much as I dislike how you're acting, I have decided that I cannot divorce you. I have decided that we are in this thing for life. I have covenanted with you that I am your husband and I will never disown you even though I don't like what you're doing. Anybody hear me? I don't know about you, but that does something for me. Maybe you've been in church longer than I have, and it really doesn't register to you. But when I look at my own life, when I consider, not before I accepted Jesus, I got enough mess on the post side of Jesus, that when God says to me that I still love you, I will not divorce you, that I'm married to you, it does something for me. Does it do anything for you? If it don't do anything for you, maybe you're in the wrong place. But God says, I am still married to the backslider, to the person who has cognitively and deliberately walked away from me, who knew that I did not like the path that they were choosing, who knew ahead of time that I disapproved of the actions that they were acting, that knew that I didn't like their thought process, that knew I didn't want them in that motel room, that knew I didn't want them in that dope house, that knew I didn't want them to do that with their money, that knew, and yet in the midst of everything, they have chosen, I still am married to the backslider. What a wonderful, what a marvelous God that we serve. Oh, Lord. A God that knew before the foundation of the earth everything that I would do that would displease him. Every thought process that I had that was contrary to his processes, that knew intimately, that knew detail, down to the finite detail, everything, the day, the hour, the moment, the second that I would do whatever I did or do to displease him, and yet he has decided that he will never divorce me, he will never disown me, that he is still married. If that means something, you ought to just slap somebody, high five, and say, I'm glad I'm in that crowd. You ought to tell somebody, I'm glad I'm in that crowd. I'm glad that he has decided not to leave me. I'm glad that he's decided not to abandon me. I am glad that he has not erased my name from the Lamb's book of life. It is fundamental to the gospel. It is, in essence, the gospel. It is the gospel in heart. That God is a forgiving God. That no matter what, he still loves. And once you're in, oh, help me somebody, you're in.